What's up, guys? This is Scoopman5000. Today we're getting back to some WWE Elite figures, and here we have Mr. T. So Mr. T was intended to be a San Diego exclusive, and of course San Diego Comic-Con didn't happen, so he ended up being put onto Entertainment Earth only. But Mattel said, had no fear, we're going to put it on Mattel Creations, and I was able to catch it on the Mattel Creations drop, and finally it's showing up in our mailbox. And this being a San Diego exclusive, they are going to go all out with the packaging like we saw last year with that Slim Jim Macho Man. But unlike the Slim Jim Macho Man, I'm going to be opening this guy up. So you can see we start out here with a red slipcover, and it's all decked out in Mr. T's gold chains. And on the front we had a custom kind of bejeweled design for the Elite logo. That design carries over to the top and on each side as well. You can see that. And then on the back, you just have the WWE logo. And once you do unbox that slipcover, you're greeted with this, which is kind of almost like a classic VHS box. The way it's kind of designed. You got a great artwork of Mr. T in the front, kind of Legends themed logo up top. First time in the line. And as we go and get a turnaround on this, you can definitely see the VHS style shape on the back, especially right here. And then on the back, you get a great artwork of Mr. T again, and then you get his read-up. Mr. T's impact and importance to the WWE cannot be overstated. It wasn't just that he main evented the very first WrestleMania as Hulk Hogan's tag team partner. It wasn't just that he was one of the biggest TV and film stars of the 1980s. It wasn't just his unforgettable signature mohawk and overflowing gold chains. Mr. T was, and to this day, is a pop culture icon who attracted the attention of the entertainment world and catapulted WWE into the mainstream. In 2014, WWE inducted Mr. T in the Hall of Fame, making his mama proud. And that's a great throwback to his ridiculous Hall of Fame speech. And then on the bottom, you get even like a little Mr. T logo next to the UPC. And you get a warning that a failure to purchase a Mr. T action figure may cause lack of coolness, and Mr. T pities a fool that don't be cool. So Mattel really does go all the way out for these convention exclusives. We can go ahead and open up the figure. So on the side here, we do have some images of Mr. T, and none of these are actually the outfit depicted here. And then inside, we kind of get this slip out box here that the figure is held into. So this front part has kind of a grain to it, but I have seen that you can actually peel this off. But that about covers our basis for packaging. So let's get to it and crack open Mr. T. And here we have Mr. T out of the packaging, and the only other accessories included that aren't already on the figure are these two gripping hands for the figure, and these don't have the kind of bling and the rings and all that the figure base does have. So if you want a more wrestling, with no entrance gear version of Mr. T, you go with these, but obviously the whole package here is all the bling and all the accessories, so let's get to it and look at those first. So we start out here with Mr. T's iconic gold chains going on here, and this dude's wearing like 50 pounds of gold on his neck. Got all sorts of detailed kind of medallions hanging off here, and then just layers upon layers of chains. It's all one piece and it slides off easily enough over his head, so you can get a closer look at that. And I really do appreciate the gold color here. Sometimes the gold on these figures kind of turns out shitty, so I'm glad that for this, exclusive San Diego figure, we do get a pretty decent gold. And then we get a really nice cloth goods ring jacket. This is all done in the camo. And now for this whole figure's outfit, I think it's kind of based on when he was wrestling on just like the Coliseum shows and stuff like that. This isn't, WrestleMania 1 or 2. It's not any of the big TV appearances. This is kind of a separate, house show or Coliseum video appearance. So it makes sense that this is the one they'd go with for, the convention exclusive first time in the line. You kind of build the interest with this guy, build the hype, and you make people buy this one. But then, the time you get the WrestleMania 1 and 2 figures, you got to update with those. For my purposes, I don't really need one that's so specific to an event. So I do like this figure, but, maybe when those other ones come out, this guy will throw back in that box. And then, those can be my display Mr. T. But yeah, really nice cloth goods camo, like I said. Good shape on that. It's the standard Velcro down the middle. And really cool how we take off the jacket. We first have to take off this belt, which is of the same quality as, like a championship belt. But it's just kind of the, the decorative belt that he'd wear around his jacket. But you see it clips on the same way as a Mattel belt. So you go ahead and take that off the figure. And we get some good detail on that. Nice leathery texture. You have the T on the belt buckle, but you could also look and you miss it. You have some T's kind of textured on there on the leather. So very cool belt piece. You can go ahead and Velcro that off to reveal Mr. T in his wrestling gear. First, we would have to remove this brace actually around his wrist. You see it isn't all the way wrapping, so it does just kind of slide off. And this one doesn't seem as easily removable, but I think if you were to remove the hand, then you could slide that right off. And then pretty easily enough, we could slide off that cloth goods ring jacket. And that leaves us with a wrestling gear Mr. T. And he looks buff, he looks jacked, he looks ready to kill somebody. And honestly, it's so cool to have Mr. T in the Elite line. I think even if you're not a wrestling fan, but if you're someone who grew up in the 80s, and even if you're not a wrestling fan, but you just want to fit him in with your other figures, your modern versions of your 80s heroes, here you got a perfect Mr. T. So we'll go ahead and look at that head sculpt. And you see, you start out with a real mean mug on Mr. T. Perfectly represents the intensity that he brought, especially around this time in his prime. And some really good detail. Obviously, Mattel killing it with the head sculpts pretty much for a few years now. And the paint on this guy is one of the best I've actually seen. And you'd hope for that, obviously, with this being a convention exclusive. But, sometimes, especially with the beards, you kind of get some kind of crappy paint job, but nothing looks to be off on this figure. Everywhere where it should be painted is painted, and you can't complain about that. You can see the haircut looks very clean on Mr. T, and that's something you got to get right with him. Even you bring it to the back there, and you can see even got some little neck folds there sculpted in. So very detailed, very good head. And the rest of the body here, I think if my memory serves me correct, this is the Triple H body. It's a bit more jacked, and that fits Mr. T around this time. He's larger than life, obviously, and as an action figure, he's going to be jacked up. But that being said, always a good detail. Even the biceps, look at those huge biceps on Mr. T. And then you go down and you got some very clean white wrist tape. And we'll get a better look at those hands now. So on this side, he's kind of got like a star around his thumb, but all the fingers are iced out with these different rings. And then even on the other hand, which is a gripping hand, you do get 2 rings on the thumb, and you get some even more unique shapes on here. So very good detail, and unless you're making more Mr. T's, it's not really something that's going to get a lot of reuse. And then down at the tights, these are done in blue. And now obviously that's the big part where you say that this outfit isn't very significant because, obviously his major appearances, he did not wear the blue trunks. Being said, I think it looks good on the figure. It suits him. And obviously it's based in reality somehow, but it's just not one of his more iconic WWF looks. But like with everything else on this figure, just a really good job. These tracksuit lines going down the pants are very, very clean looking. Even down at the knee pads, you got this kind of circular design, kind of printed around in that darker blue. And that looks very good. And the back of the knees are just white. And then even down at the boots, again, a very good gold paint on this. And the laces are actually different. You got a blue lace on here and red on this side. So I think with all the, the entrance accessories, I think that's definitely the way you got to go. But, that being said, I'm glad we're getting more Mr. T figures because he does look very good just in the wrestling gear. Then now we'll go ahead and do articulation. So it's the same old with these Mattel Elite figures. Obviously, especially on this channel, we've gotten used to it. So the head's on the ball joint, getting the good rotation, good range of motion. Does not look up very much, but looks down decently enough. Torso is on that ab crunch. It goes down that much and goes back that much. The shoulder is on a swivel, and it's on a real tight hinge. You do get a bicep cut, single jointed elbow. The wrist is going to swivel, and it's going to hinge. You can say swivel at the waist. Getting a very good split. You get a double jointed knee, hindered by the knee pad. You get a cut at the upper thigh. You get a cut at the boot. The foot is going back that much, and it's going up that much, and you do get a slight rocker on the boot. That about does it for Mr. T, so now we'll go ahead and do my favorite part and do some comparisons. And up first, we got the basic Roman Reigns and basic Seth Rollins. And then here we have the Elite Roman Reigns and Elite Seth Rollins. And then finally, here we have him with some Federation guys. We got the classic announcer Vince McMahon. And then we got the 90s Royal Rumble Macho Man. And yeah, I really got to step my game up when it comes to 80s collection, especially now that I have Mr. T. I got to get a good Hogan, even probably a better Macho Man, Ultimate Warrior. There's an Andre the Giant coming out I got to get. My 90s Attitude Era is kind of shaping up recently, but my 80s collection is severely lacking. But at least now I got this Mr. T, and that kind of bolsters the collection up. As for the scale, I think that Vince McMahon is still way too big because it's on the suit body. But other than that, he does fit in well with them. And overall, that's going to do it for your look at the Mr. T Elite Exclusive. And blown away by this guy. So excited to have Mr. T in the Elite collection. Get some eyes on the Elite. I think this really does legitimize Elite figures. It really does bring it to another level. Because like the back of the packaging said, Mr. T was an icon, and he still is, and especially now in a time of such 80s nostalgia, pretty much everything that all these figures and all these toy lines are based on are 80s nostalgia. And I mean, there's a reason for that. That stuff's great, and of course the original rock and wrestling, when you got Mr. T, and you got Hulk Hogan, and you got all that, it's great stuff. As for the celebrities, I'd love to see, a Mike Tyson would be brilliant, a Snoop Fred Durst. Fuck it, give me all of that. I'm very excited. You know, if they could get more celebrities in the line, I'm all for that, because like I said, I think especially, you know, now when we're such a point in Mattel where they've made just about everybody, you know, start branching out, start bringing in the celebrities, you know, the big celebrity guests that they've had. And I think it's going to do him wonders. And real cool for Mr. T also, he's got that He-Man figure coming out. And that's going to be huge because, again, if you're not a wrestling guy, you know, there's 80s collectors out there. And there's He-Man collectors out there who I'm sure would love a Mr. T themed He-Man figure. So overall, very big for Mattel to get this figure out, and they did not disappoint for their first ever Mr. T. And I'm pretty sure that there's even been 2 Mr. T's announced so far. The only one I can remember off the top of my head is that boxing match 2-pack with Roddy Piper. Also for Mr. T, there's the Funko Pops coming. There's an Amazon 2-pack with Hogan, and then he's also getting a single release. So this isn't a one-time deal for Mr. T, so if you missed out on this guy, you know, don't go paying crazy prices because there will be more figures coming. But that being said, I'm super stoked to have this in the collection. Let me know what you guys think of this figure in the comments. Did you pick up Mr. T? Did you miss out? Do you not care? As always, I'm going to leave it off with some photos I took of the figure. And with that, I will see you guys in the next action figure review.